Alright, what we're going to do in this video is we're going to create sockets for this figurine that I just finished sculpting, so that we can have an easier time printing individual pieces instead of the whole, and minimizing the supports that we need to generate during the printing process. So this is how it's all going to look in the final piece, and some of them have sockets and some of them don't. Most of them are pretty much done the same way, where the arm, the boots, the head. The one difference is the waist fur will be resting on the legs, and it doesn't have a socket, but it'll be given enough clearance to fit through the waist and rest on the legs. So let's start off with the easiest part on the figure to create a socket out of, and that'll be where the arms are. And the seams are going to be easy to hide through the gloves, and it's just a straight line through from each arm. But we're going to start on the left arm because I'm going to separate these into two pieces, one along the line here on the forearm and another piece on the elbow where her biceps are right in the middle. So let's start by hiding all the parts that we don't need so that we don't have any lag. And the one thing we want to do is create a cutting mesh that will cut into or create the separation. So I'm gonna create, since I want to separate the elbow, I'm going to use that as a cutting mesh. So this whole area here that I just masked is going to be my cutting mesh that I'm going to create. But these two parts are not separated yet, so I'm going to start by doing that, separating the elbow from the forearm. So first thing I need to do is I can hide this part and mask the part that I want to separate. Make sure you rotate around to see if it's at the correct spot for the mask. And we're going to sharpen that. And we are going to group mask. And see what happens there is we create separate poly groups. And we're going to separate, unhide everything, and then we're going to split hidden on the elbow. And we're going to solo mode to see the whole piece, and notice there's a hole that we need to close. So I put the buttons on my UI separate for custom, but to find that button is geometry tab, modify topology, and close hole. So after we close the hole, you want to kind of smooth this jagged area out to avoid any issues. I'm going to do a rough pass, but you can be more delicate with this area. This is just for tutorial purpose. So that's how it's going to look. And you want to get this piece out. Split pin on that. Actually, on second thought, I could have just used this as a cutting mesh also to separate the elbow. So we could probably still do that. So let's use this piece and duplicate it, because one will be the cutting mesh and the other will be the original that we want to print with. So let's rename this to boolean inflate so that we can keep track of everything. Let's call it armband and to make it a cutting mesh, we have to select its icon right here. And next thing you do is you have to inflate the cutting meshes. So we're going to go down to the deformation menu, and we're going to inflate it by 2. Magic number. As you can see, it's figurine size, and you compare the sizes if we toggle through them. So next thing we want to do is we will make sure that the hierarchy on the subtool menu is correct. The cutting meshes should be below the meshes that we want to cut into. So let's find that elbow that we want to cut into. We can just alt left click. Oh, there it is. And it's the cutting mesh is below that. So now we can just go ahead and hide everything. So this is what it looks like without being cut. So when you click live boolean, it'll show what it's going to cut into, like that. So now we can go ahead and scroll down the subtool menu, click on boolean, and make boolean mesh. And that'll go ahead and create a mesh, but it's not in here yet, so we have to append it. So we're gonna click append. It should appear on the very far right of the quick picks, and it'll be on the very bottom of the subtool menu once you append it. So we can move it, shift click left click and move it up, and then we can just keep clicking down on this button. So we can turn off live boolean and compare the elbow that we just made with the one that's already in here. Oh yeah. So let's go solo mode, and this is what we just created. It'll always be named UMesh, so that's one way you can keep track of it. So now that we have that, we don't yeah, we can use this as a boolean mesh also. So this armband boolean piece was specifically made to cut into the elbow, so we don't need it anymore. So we can go ahead and move it away so we don't get confused with too many pieces. So I'm going to move it all the way down. This is what I like to do. Or you can put it in a separate folder if you want, like this. So now that we moved that unneeded piece down there to its own folder, we can go back up here and figure out what we're going to do with the elbow. So now that we have the elbow, we can go ahead and unhide the body. So now that we've created the boolean piece out of the live boolean and appended this UMesh, we can go ahead and combine the parts that we separated back. So it will be the forearm and the band. Let's merge down, and we could even combine this actually. Yeah, let's do that anyways. Merge down. And to keep it simple for this tutorial, I'm going to merge the body with the arm also. Merge down. And now we have the arm. And then we have what we mentioned before, was that we were going to create a boolean coding mesh, and this is it. So we can just go ahead and rename it, or actually I like to also duplicate in case I need the mesh again. So let's duplicate that in case we make an error, and rename it boolean inflate, because we're going to inflate and boolean this. Elbow left, and once again we're going to inflate by 2. And let's compare again. of course. So now we can go ahead and live boolean and make sure we check this visa icon. This is how it's gonna look. Actually, yeah, we actually did need to keep this separate piece because this is gonna be the final elbow. So it's a good thing I duplicated. But this is not the end. So this is the next step will be to append the pegs that we want to use to socket these pieces together. So I like to use cubes. And we go ahead and turn off geometry, and we're gonna move it to where it needs to go. Transparency will help you see things much better as you move it into the other mesh. We're gonna scale it down again. And move it to where the seams of the elbow that we separated into the forearm are. Probably gotta scale it down a little bit more. And then what I like to do is I'd like to subdivide it, but before I subdivide it, I want to make sure I'm gonna get a crisp edge. So I'll add in an edge loop here, there, and then I'm gonna subdivide this 1, 2, 3. And I want it to be longer so that when I connect the pieces, they'll stay without having to glue them on. Alright. So now, of course, when we've ended that tool, it's going to be on the very bottom, so we're going to move it up to where the elbow is. And we're also going to duplicate this peg, but let's worry about that later. Let's take a look at how much it extrudes out of the elbow. And for the best fit, you'd want the cut from the elbow and the peg to be perpendicular. So let's orient it a little bit further. And we're gonna make sure that the walls are thick enough around the peg so that it'll be more sturdy when we print them. Let's take a look again. That looks fine now. We can move it a little bit more to the right, or just left. And then now we gotta create the pegs for the bicep side of her elbow. So we're gonna duplicate this. Thank you, save. And now we're gonna move that over here. Make sure the walls are thick for this. So let's turn off the body and compare. So we can go ahead and move this a little bit further to this side, and then rotate this a little bit. And it looks long enough. Actually, now that I looked at the body, it's a little thin on this side, so we're gonna move it back up here. Maybe I'll just shift it a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfectly perpendicular. And same with this side. As long as it's even on the walls and has a clean entry. So now we have both sockets in place and the elbow. Let's turn off the body to take a look. this will be, let's see, here's the boolean mesh and here's the original mesh. We want to make sure that we have duplicates of each. So but we have to also duplicate the pegs. So we're gonna merge down and then duplicate. So we have 2 elbows and 4 sockets with 2 subtools. We're gonna move this one. We're gonna go ahead and combine this actually, which is, this is the original size that we're gonna have the final print in, and this is gonna be the boolean mesh. So we also have to inflate the pegs by, of course, the number 2. And we're gonna double check. So we're gonna merge it first. Merge the elbow, the boolean elbow with the boolean pegs, and we're gonna compare the original elbow with the boolean elbow and make sure that it's the correct size, and it is. So now that we have both, we're going to go ahead and try a live boolean. Turn off solo mode, make sure the icons for the visa is selected, the cutting mesh, and then turn off transparency and turn on live boolean. And this is how it'll look like. We're going to go ahead and create those meshes by going down the subtool menu, clicking boolean, and make boolean mesh. Once the booleans have already been created, you can go ahead and turn off the live boolean and append the newly created booleans. In this case, we created the whole body, but this is just a test. Eventually, you'd want to have a bunch of different boolean pieces together and cutting into the body together. But you don't have to do it that way. You can also just keep doing it one by one until you get everything done. But take note that once you create a boolean piece, all of the geometry will be connected. Let's see, that's the wrong piece. Let me go. Yeah, so this one, even though it has a separate polygroup, right? But once you go outer groups and everything turns into a solid color, that means that everything's connected. So take note of that if you want to keep something like your clothing separate, so that it's easier for you to select things later on. So but if you want to create it as a final piece, then yeah, you can go ahead and merge all the pieces together through the polygroups. So what we really wanted was the forearm, right? And the elbow, or this joint. So we're gonna double check to see if these actually fit. Let's go ahead and move this up the hierarchy. Turn off the real body and go down into the list to where the original elbow is. You can go ahead and turn that on, and let's hide the body actually, because that's at really high poly count, so it'll lag everything. Now we'll have the forearm separate, and if you look closely, let's go ahead and hide the elbow. You'll notice that there's a little gap, enough that it'll fit through. And that's what we want. So this could be the final piece to print, and this could be the final piece. But of course, before you export this file or this piece, you'd also want to decimate them so that it's a lower poly count, so it's easy for your slicer software to read. So as previously mentioned, the arms are probably the easiest place to create sockets or any other straight lines. So let's take a look at something that will be a little bit more complex, like her chest piece. So what I planned on the final sockets are to have a cut through her underwear line, but the chest piece is covering it. So what I want to do with the chest piece is to create clearance. So let's so this, I would want to cut these excess polygons to make sure that there's space for this hip piece to be to fit into here. I don't want to. Well, it's up to what you want to do, but I didn't want to create a seam through this, but I wanted to create a seam through her underwear line because it lines up with all of her other pieces, like the shorts. Turn off that. Yeah. So it lines according to where I want it, so it could become a little bit more modular and interchangeable with other pieces. And the pants. So I want to make sure that the shirt is cut into deep enough so that it'll fit every single other piece, like the shorts and the pants. And you can do it this way by masking and just sculpting it manually, moving everything in. It'll take a little bit of work, but also you can also use this part of the body, and we can let's duplicate this first actually. Group mask, this is just for example, this is a little bit messy. Split hidden, and we're gonna go ahead and cancel by Control Z for the ZBrush because I want to keep it the way it is. And we're gonna go back to the one that we just created, and we're gonna close the holes, smooth out the edges a little bit. And now we're gonna use this as a boolean cutting mesh. So I think this is enough, but of course you want to be a little bit cleaner with the boolean coding mesh. I could have gotten rid of this piece on the mask area here and make it a little bit more cleaner. Same with this, but just for demonstration purposes this is enough. And what you want to do is you want to let's cancel this. Go back to the boolean piece, and we want to again inflate. This time not by 2 because you don't want a tight fit here. You want to create enough clearance, so we can go ahead and inflate by something like 10 or maybe even more. And we're going to go ahead and rename this actually inflate. Boolean inflates. Make sure we click the icon, and this should be below the shirt that we want to cut to. Alright, that's, make sure it's visible, and it's going to cut into the shirt by like that. But we don't want to cut into this area because it looks fine, because it's right above the line. So we can go ahead and also just hide the other parts, or yes, separate. We can make a group mask and hide the other parts. that we don't want to cut into. Delete hidden, close hole again. And let's try that again. So closer to what I like. And of course it's going to be really messy, so you would have to get in there and just resculpt everything right after you create the boolean mesh. Or you can make a really clean cutting mesh and avoid having to clean everything by hand. There's different ways to do it. So we're going to turn off live boolean, turn off the boolean mesh, append the newly created shirt, turn that one off, and that's how it looks like. And you can go ahead and resculpt this accordingly, trim it, clay brush, whatever you want to do, H polish, as long as you don't touch the outside. And you will want to keep this a little bit thick so that it's easier to print. Just takes a little bit of work. So in the end, it'll all look like this. And to revisit the areas that we created previously, or we were working on previously, here's the body. I cleaned up the shirt, made it thick enough to print, and it should fit over every single lower half and not have it get in the way, have any fitting issues. Another area that's similar that we used to inflate to cut into, just like this, the back of the shirt, is her fur thingy, waist fur, that's what I called it. I gave it enough clearance so that her chest, her waist can fit into this area, and enough to rest onto her hips like that. But yeah, I did the same exact process as I did with the back of the shirt. I used the legs and inflated it by something like 10 or maybe more to make sure that I cut into the fur enough so that it can easily slip in and out. Same process. And voila, that's how you do it. If there's any questions, leave a comment. If you like this video, give it a like and all that. Thank you for watching.